a second chance at life. There can be many challenges growing up as a black man in America. Leon had always known that life in America would be an uphill battle. Growing up in a rundown neighborhood, plagued by poverty and violence, he had witnessed firsthand the injustices that permeated every facet of society. In a city under siege by both the state police and local law enforcement, and because of a presidential order, the National Guard were activated to patrol the streets under the premise that this would reduce local crime. Here's how it all started. It all started with a routine traffic stop that quickly spiraled out of control. Leon was a law-abiding citizen with no criminal record, but he was pulled over by a group of aggressive police officers who immediately assumed the worst. Despite his protests of innocence, he was arrested on trumped-up charges and thrown into a cruiser without so much as a second thought. Leon had always been a target for unfair treatment from law enforcement, who would often stop him for one reason or another. But nothing could prepare him for the day he was wrongfully accused of the crime of being in the wrong place at the right time. It was a warm fall evening when Leon was returning home from work, when suddenly police officers surrounded him, handcuffed him, and brought him in for questioning. Despite his best efforts, the shadow of systemic racism loomed large over Leon's life. Job opportunities were scarce, and the criminal justice system seemed completely stacked against him. In a cruel twist of fate, Leon found himself caught in the crosshairs of a police crackdown, falsely accused of a crime he did not commit. The trial that followed was a travesty of justice. The judge, known for his harsh sentences and blatant racism, developed a nickname over the years. It was Judge Hanging Harry Coleman. Judge Coleman wasted no time in condemning Leon to 45 years behind bars, 45 years with parole eligibility after 25 years. Citing flimsy evidence and selective testimonies as justification from the defense. As Leon was led away in chains, he felt a cold knot of despair settle in his stomach, knowing that the deck had been stacked against him from the start. And then, Leon found himself sitting in jail cell after jail cell. And then finally, Leon found himself facing a 45-year prison sentence. How could this happen? 45 years. You could say that he knew better, but not knowing how serious a trap the devil had set for his life. Leon was now locked away from the world that he knew. He felt lost and broken, with little to no hope of redemption. It was during his darkest moments when he met prison evangelist, Mr. Curtis, a prison minister who would visit the prison every Thursday, who seemed to radiate a sense of calm and inner peace. Curtis took Gregory under his wing, guiding him with words of wisdom and offering him a glimmer of hope by sharing the Word of God to men who had seemed to have lost all hope. One evening, as they talked about prison issues, Curtis opened a Bible to Mark 11:22. And Jesus answering saith unto them, Have faith in God. For verily I say unto you, that whosoever shall say unto this mountain, Be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he saith shall come to pass, he shall have whatsoever he saith. Curtis taught Leon the power of faith and belief. He explained that if you would have faith the size of a mustard seed, you could move mountains and change your life for the better. Leon had finally begun to find peace through the power of prayer. As the years went by, Leon found a sense of peace within himself, knowing that he was not defined by his past mistakes, but by the strength of his spirit and the grace of his faith. One afternoon, out of the blue, Mr. Curtis spoke these words to Leon. "You are going home, so pack your bags." Knowing that he had only served about 5 years of his 45-year sentence, Mr. Curtis went on to say, "Do you believe these words that I'm saying?" Leon pondered for a split second and then said, "Yes, I do believe." Mr. Curtis had planted the seed of Mark chapter 11, verse 22 into Leon's spirit. And as he began to look towards the horizon, Leon saw the endless possibilities that lay ahead of him. With his faith beginning to increase, and as his compass, and with his spirit as a guide, he knew that he had the strength to create a new life. A life that would be filled with redemption, renewed faith, and a brighter tomorrow. As Judge Harry Coleman entered the courtroom, a voice rang out.
All rise. The Honorable Judge Harry M. Coleman will now preside.
Leon was called on to attend what was called outside court. There he sat in the dimly lit courtroom, his hands shaking with nerves as he awaited his fate. He had been serving a 45-year prison sentence for his crime. And now, uncertain of what was ahead, not really knowing if this was about adding new charges to an already long sentence. This was a period of the truly unknown. With Judge Harry Coleman presiding over his appeal, Leon felt like there was no hope. Leon's defense attorney continued to supply evidence that would exonerate him, protesting that Leon's initial sentence was substantially long with no real evidence of a substantiated crime, and that the state has to this point failed to prove its case against Leon. Not to mention the lack of state's evidence. Files and witnesses had not been properly presented. Judge Coleman grew increasingly frustrated with the state's failure to produce persecuting files, folders, and documents that could potentially exonerate Leon. Judge Coleman slammed his gavel on the desk as his voice began ringing out in the silent courtroom. "Sir, is this the best you can do?" Judge Coleman directing his comments to the state's prosecuting counsel, Attorney Gary Thompson. His eyes flashing with anger. "This man's future is at stake, and you come here into my courtroom unprepared?" Judge Coleman shouted, "Mr. Thompson, you have 30 days to provide the state's documents. No exceptions." Leon's heart raced as he watched the back and forth between Judge Harry Coleman and Attorney Gary Thompson. But little did Leon know was that God had a plan and was quietly working things out behind the scene. Finally, 30 days passed, and the tension in the courtroom was palpable. As Judge Harry Coleman deliberated, Leon could feel the eyes of everyone in the courtroom locked directly on him. He could sense the weight of their judgment hanging over him like a dark cloud. And then, finally, after what felt like an eternity of waiting, Judge Harry Coleman rendered his decision. because the state had done such a poor job of producing complete state documents and files against Mr. Leon. It was then that Judge Coleman overthrew Leon's case and looked at him and said, "Mr. Leon, as of right now, you are a free man. I find the mishandling of evidence, documents, and files by the state to be egregious and inexcusable," he announced, his voice steady and firm. "In light of no new information being presented by the prosecution, I am overturning Mr. Leon's conviction due to a lack of sufficient evidence by the state." And then, just when he had resigned himself to a lifetime of confinement, a miracle occurred. Through a stroke of luck and the diligence of his dedicated legal team, and the failure of the state to produce through procedure, it was revealed that the state had failed to provide crucial evidence that would have proven Leon's guilt beyond a shadow of a doubt. In a dramatic turn of events, Judge Harry Coleman was forced to overturn his own verdict, setting Mr. Leon free after just 5 long years of a wrongful 45-year sentence. "Mr. Leon, you are to be returned back to state prison, because as a federal judge, I do not have the authority to release you completely until this process runs its course." It was at that moment that Mr. Leon knew, deep down inside his soul, that God was real. Tears of relief streamed down Leon's face as he listened to his verdict. He was overcome with emotion and gratitude flooding through him like a tidal wave. As he was led out of the courtroom, back to state prison, he knew that his future would now be in his own hands. Through his resilience and perseverance, Leon became a beacon of hope for those who had been wronged by a broken system. His journey was a testament to the power of redemption and the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. And as he stood tall, a symbol of justice and resilience, Leon vowed to never stop fighting for a society where no one would have to endure the pain, injustice, and humiliations he had faced. But Leon was a man of unwavering faith and indomitable spirit. Despite the harsh conditions and constant threats he faced during his wrongful time in prison, he refused to be broken. He spent his days reading, writing, and educating himself, determined to emerge from his ordeal, stronger and more resolute than ever before. In the years that followed, even though it took an additional 2 years before final release papers were authorized, Leon became a beacon of resilience and inspiration for those who had suffered similar fates at the hands of a severely broken system. He spoke out against injustice, fought for reform, and lent a helping hand to those who had lost their way. And though the scars of his ordeal would never fully fade, he found peace in the knowledge that his journey had not been in vain. Leon had learned that true strength lies not in the absence of struggle, but in the courage to persevere in the face of overwhelming odds. And in a judicial system where justice is often elusive and dreams are easily shattered, his story stood as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope. As Leon stepped out into the sunlight, feeling the warmth of freedom wash over him, he couldn't help but reflect on the journey he had been through. The pain, the anguish, the resilience that had kept him going in the face of injustice and adversity. He vowed to use his experience to not only advocate for others who had been wronged by the flawed criminal justice system, but to also shine a light on the injustices that still plagued our society. And as he walked away from the prison gates, A free man at last. Leon knew that his story was far from over. He was a survivor, a fighter, a symbol of perseverance in the face of adversity, and he would continue to fight for justice, for equality, for a world where no one would ever have to suffer the same injustices he had endured.